The People's Temple, Guyana, how 900 followers willingly drunk poison, on November 18, 1978. Charismatic leader Jim Jones leads his devoted followers from hope and idealism to the depths of mass suicide and murder, unraveling the dark complexities of faith, power, and the human psyche. The 17th of June, 2024. As the sun set on November 18, 1978, in the jungles of Jonestown, the world held its breath. What drove over 900 souls to willingly drink poison? Did Jones's promises of salvation and the looming threat of outsiders fuel their ultimate sacrifice? How did the serene utopia of Jonestown descend into a nightmarish scene of death and despair? The People's Temple, from hope to horror. In the quiet neighborhoods of Indianapolis, Indiana, in 1954, a small church was born. Founded by Jim Jones, initially under the name of Community Unity Church, it would later be known as the People's Temple Full Gospel Church. Jones, a charismatic and ambitious man, blended the teachings of Christianity with a fervent belief in socialism and racial equality. His sermons, laced with promises of a better tomorrow and healing miracles, quickly drew a diverse congregation seeking hope in uncertain times. The Charismatic Rise. Jim Jones wasn't just another preacher. He was a man with a vision. Inspired by his socialist beliefs and fueled by a desire to combat racial injustices, Jones quickly gained prominence in the Indianapolis community. His integrationist policies and staged healings garnered attention and followers, propelling the People's Temple into a position of influence within the city. By 1955, Jones had purchased his first church building, marking a milestone in his quest to build a community based on his ideals of equality and social justice. From Indiana to California, expansion and ideology. Jones's ambitions were not confined to Indiana. In the 1960s, he uprooted the People's Temple and moved it to California, where he believed his vision could flourish on a grander scale. Settling first in Redwood Valley near Ukiah, Jones continued to preach his blend of Christianity and socialism, attracting new members drawn to his promises of communal living and spiritual fulfillment. His efforts were not in vain. The People's Temple expanded rapidly in California, establishing branches in cities like San Francisco, Los Angeles, and Fresno. As the temple grew, so did Jones's political ambitions. He cultivated relationships with prominent politicians and community leaders, presenting himself as a champion of civil rights and social reform. Yet beneath the surface of his public persona, darker truths were beginning to emerge. Reports of financial irregularities and accusations of psychological manipulation began to surface, hinting at a darker side to Jones's charismatic facade. The path to Jonestown, Paradise Lost. The turning point for the People's Temple came with the establishment of Jonestown in Guyana. In 1974, Jones leased a remote tract of land in the South American jungle, envisioning it as a socialist utopia free from the perceived corruption and racism of the United States. Initially presented as a sanctuary from media scrutiny and political pressures, Jonestown quickly became a prison for its inhabitants. Life in Jonestown was marked by strict control and isolation from the outside world. Jones exerted total authority over his followers, regulating everything from their daily routines to their personal relationships. The community, once touted as a paradise, became a dystopian nightmare, as Jones's paranoia and megalomania intensified. The tragedy unfolds, November 18, 1978. The events of November 18, 1978, would forever stain the pages of history. Congressman Leo Ryan, responding to allegations of abuse and coercion within the People's Temple, traveled to Guyana to investigate. Accompanied by a delegation of journalists and concerned relatives of temple members, Ryan's visit initially appeared to offer hope to those trapped in Jonestown. However, what began as a fact-finding mission quickly descended into chaos and bloodshed. As Ryan and his delegation prepared to depart, several temple members expressed a desire to leave with them. In a cruel twist of fate, these attempts at freedom were met with violence. Temple gunmen opened fire on Ryan and his companions at the Port Kaituma airstrip, killing Ryan, several journalists, and one defector, and injuring others. Meanwhile, back in Jonestown, Jim Jones enacted his final horrific act. Faced with the imminent exposure of his crimes and the loss of control over his followers, Jones ordered a mass suicide. Over 900 men, women, and children obediently drank cyanide-laced Flavor Aid, committing what Jones chillingly termed revolutionary suicide. Families were torn apart, communities devastated, and the world left grappling with the question of how such a tragedy could have occurred. In the wake of the Jonestown tragedy, investigations sought to unravel the complex web of factors that led to the deaths of over 900 people. Psychological manipulation, fear tactics, and isolation played crucial roles in Jones's ability to maintain control over his followers. His charismatic leadership and promises of a better life masked a darker reality of abuse, coercion, and psychological torment. Jones's manipulation tactics were multifaceted. He exploited his followers' vulnerabilities, promising them salvation and a sense of belonging in exchange for unquestioning loyalty. The isolation of Jonestown, both physical and psychological, prevented dissent and reinforced Jones's grip on power. The use of staged healings and public demonstrations of loyalty further cemented his authority, creating a culture of fear and obedience within the community. Moreover, Jones's apocalyptic beliefs and warnings of imminent danger played on his followers' fears and insecurities. He presented Jonestown as a refuge from a hostile outside world, portraying himself as their savior and protector. How could a community founded on principles of equality and social justice descend into such a nightmare of control and manipulation?